Solera-solar.com, baby. That's SOLERA-solar.com. Brought to you by Light Efficient Design, Greg.
A lot of times when you do a solar light, there's either solar or there's line voltage, right? This one does both. This is hybrid. It's revolutionary. It's powered by the sun, but pulls from the grid if necessary, which guarantees you always have light when you need it 365 nights. The light output is equivalent to a 250-watt HID, DLC listed,
Come on.
and a fully adjustable solar panel, so it always faces south.
Get a grip on solar with Light Efficient Design. Go to solera-solar.com, SOLERA-SOLAR.com, baby. Check it out. Get a grip on rebates.
Welcome back to Get a Grip on Rebates. This is Juan Carlos Blacker. I got with me John Wilson. What are we talking about today, John?
Boy, this is like we saw it in the headlines, and then you hit me with like the Tom Clancy novel, right? In CPUC PDF format. I think we're going to be talking about fraud. We saw some headlines, and it was like, we can't not talk about this. Two examples we saw recently.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we just saw recently two examples of fraud that have come up just in the last month. One, dealing with commercial lighting fraud. The Iowa man was just sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud on a program, and the second one. Well, actually, let's dive into that one a little bit first. You want to tell what happens, John?
Well, you know, I tell you, the circumstances of the case were this nefarious character, probably of poor repute and not great standing. Who knows? I don't want to put this guy, give him too much credit telling his personal story. I think what happened was this individual essentially saw an opportunity to take advantage of these programs. And, you know, it's one of those classic stories. It seems like you're working harder to do it the wrong way than you might be doing it the right way. But this individual got caught. And you and I have been wanting to have this conversation about oversight for some reason, for some time. But in this case, maybe this is a good way to tee it off at a big picture level. Like these two examples we're going to talk about are like why these things exist, right?
Right. So dig a little bit more into the Iowa case. So what happened is a gentleman actually started what he called a company that was providing, you know, quote, rebates for commercial customers, and he was going and claiming to the utility actually additional products, more products than were being put in, and falsifying records using company names without their permission, using company information without the permission, and falsifying POS reports and installation reports to get extra money from the utility. Sometimes actually making the retrofits, but sometimes not doing anything, and thus so actually defrauding the utility for over $300,000, which is pretty crazy. However, this isn't actually an uncommon occurrence. It's not common, but he's not alone in this. We see this sort of fraud out there it happens, and there's definitely, you should be aware of it as a small business, as a distributor, as a customer, need to be aware of nefarious characters who want to take advantage of these rebates and the rebate money that utilities are trying to give. So and then the other one, jumping to the other case of fraud, was actually from a different level, and this had to do with a manufacturer on an upstream program. Upstream program are the programs where manufacturers are providing discounted bulbs to retailers for sale to end customers, and this one was happening down in San Diego. And John, this one's a little crazy. This is a Tom Clancy novel.
Yeah, we could probably unpack this one a little bit more for the listeners. I mean, essentially what was happening here is you had one of these, it was a classic, like we're trying to access these hard to reach markets. And that's something utilities are very familiar with. And that parlance has even reached most of our distribution audience. Everybody understands a hard to reach market. A lot of times it's like English is a second language, minority communities, They're not the ones who have been catered to and big box stores that are easy for the utilities to like turn high numbers. And so as part of their effort to say, if we're going to do business with these hard to reach markets, we can't have the same super high level of standards for documentation and oversight. Like, somebody running this little C-store doesn't have the same sales data system as a freaking Home Depot does, right? And so it's not, we can't put the burden on them the same if we want to reach these markets. And unfortunately, that created a hitch. It created a loophole. It created what do you want to call it?
It created an opportunity, if you want to call it, for some unfortunately bad behavior. And in this case, a manufacturer made a deal with the utility to supply bulbs to these smaller retailers, these hard to reach retailers. Yep, you were about to say something. Oh, anyway,
go ahead.
Yeah, these hard to reach retailers, and in some cases actually never delivered the bulbs and just sent false shipping labels to the utility for payment. So we're talking about some pretty big fraud, and in this case, almost $11 million worth of fraud that occurred, and so these opportunities come up where industry or nefarious characters can take advantage of the system. Right, John?
Yeah. What was striking about this, the case we're talking about now, as opposed to the first one, is the first one was an example of like a bad actor coming from industry, working pretty independently, and just trying to really exploit the system from the outside. That's obviously bad. It's not a common occurrence, but it's not unheard of. It's why these programs all over the country have pretty similar rules to guard against this stuff, right? And it's not unique to utility programs. It's anywhere there is this sort of like pot of money to do some work, and there has to be some modicum of like social contract, right? This risk exists. But what makes the second case, I think, really different is that it was almost like the manufacturer was able to work not with the utility, but with certain staff members who were responsible for key elements of oversight. And that's what really allowed that one to me to really get blown to a whole nother level of bad acting and bad dealings. There was one line, JC, I want to put on the table. I want to see what you think about this, because the utility wrote their response, and it was very clear they were trying to be like, the utility ultimately is responsible for this, but the people have been fired and actions that were taken and yada, all that. But there was a line at the end, and I got to hear your thoughts. It seemed like they kind of tried to sneak something in there that said, this only happened because we've been so successful. And because we've been so successful, it's getting harder and harder. Did you?
I caught that line. I did. And it's funny, but that's utility PR, right? They have to do something like that. They have to do that. The good part for the ratepayers who actually pay for these programs, in both cases, and in both cases, there is retribution back to the ratepayers, right? For this issue at San Diego, the utility is now required to figure out programs that are going to give that $11 million back to the ratepayers. So there is some retribution to us as the ratepayers for that. And I really want to stress that in the case of both of these, they were both discovered, and that is through utility oversight, which we continually talk about, and second, through evaluation. And that's something we haven't really talked about, John, too much, is all of these rebate programs always have the planning, they have the implementation of them, but when they are over or on a pretty regular basis, they have what we call evaluation. And that is a separate company comes in and does an evaluation. And that, for this California situation, was where this fraud was found, because there were indications that it would have been impossible to send this many bulbs to these retail locations for a variety of reasons. And it is that evaluation side that actually is super important to these programs and makes these programs accountable to their actions and allows for even more oversight, which I know some of you listeners out there don't want to hear more oversight, but that's the case.
This is probably going to be a great topic for us to hit on. I mean, really, like, what's the difference between oversight and evaluation, right? So we can kind of save that for another show. But one thing I want to make sure gets mentioned here is when I think about like the hundreds of relationships that I've made in the thousands of conversations I've had from everywhere from light fare to just, in a distributor's office, after hours, they're a pretty self-policing group. The vast overwhelming majority of people are trying to do things right. They care about the system. They have like integrity, and they bring that value to the table in their business dealings. And that's actually another thing. In addition to the utility that has these mechanisms built in, it's also the vast majority of good actors that also support and keep these programs running the way they're supposed to. So we'd be remiss not to mention that. A lot of bad actors, these so-called trunk slammers who come into a community, they get run out by the good actors a lot of times before the utility.
Absolutely. On the same note, I want to end today's call with a warning out there for those good actors and for those trade allies who work with the utilities on these programs. You got to be aware that fraud is out there, fraud is happening, but it's not common. It's not the bulk of what's happening, and just be aware. So if you are a end customer or a business owner and you want to do a utility program, make sure you're talking directly to the utility as well as to your contractors or your distributors. If you're a distributor, make sure that you are reading through the contracts that you're setting up with the utilities. In all cases, just double check who you're working with and always go to the source, always go to the utility to make sure that that what is being offered, what you're thinking is happening is actually happening. And if you do that, then you're probably going to stay away from this. If you're a bad actor and you want to create fraud, well, the opportunities are there, but you're probably going to.
Those guys don't listen to your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Interesting stuff happening just recently in the news, and great to talk to you about it, John. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.
This show is brought to you by Solera-Solar.com. That's SOLERA-SOLAR.com. Get a grip on rebates, Greg. Solera Solar.
That's right. Brought to you by Light Efficient Design. It's a new product they have. That's a hybrid 365 solar-powered area light. Now, it replaces a 250 watt, which is one of the most common area lights out there. So they have that thinking ahead of them. They took care of that. It's powered by the sun, but it pulls from the grid if necessary. That guarantees 365 nights of light. When you want an area light, you want light. You want it working all the time. And to have the capability to be solar and line voltage is awesome. And it's a fully adjustable solar panel to ensure it always faces south for that maximum sun collection. Check them out.
Brought to you by Light Efficient Design. Go to Solera-Solar.com. SOLERA-SOLAR.com.